Paul McCartney and George Harrison weren't just bandmates, they were childhood friends who grew up together, made music history, and changed the world as two of the legendary Beatles. But behind the fame and fortune, their relationship had its ups and downs, a mix of brotherhood, rivalry, laughter, and at times, distance. For years, fans wondered how Paul truly felt about George. And now, decades after their most iconic moments and years after George's passing, Paul is finally speaking from the heart. In a recent interview that struck a chord with Beatles fans everywhere, Paul McCartney opened up in a deeply personal way about his memories of George Harrison. It wasn't rehearsed or polished, it was honest, emotional, and raw. "George was like my little brother," Paul said. "We met as kids, rode the same bus, and shared our first guitars and dreams. Their musical chemistry was undeniable. George's soulful guitar work and Paul's melodic genius were the perfect complement to John Lennon's edgy songwriting and Ringo's steady rhythm." But as the band grew more famous, things became complicated. Creative differences, pressure from the media, and the overwhelming weight of being the Beatles started pulling them in different directions. Paul admitted that in the later Beatles years, their relationship became strained. "I was trying to hold the band together, and sometimes that meant stepping on toes," Paul confessed. "George wanted more space, more say, and I get that now. Back then, I was just so focused on keeping the train on the tracks." Fans had long speculated about tension between the two, and Paul, for the first time in years, confirmed that those rumors weren't entirely wrong. But what stands out in Paul's reflections is not regret, but deep affection. He recalled moments that reminded him why he loved George like a brother: his dry wit, his obsession with gardening, and his deep spiritual nature. George wasn't loud like John or playful like Ringo, he had this quiet intensity. But when he spoke or played, you felt it in your soul. One of the most touching parts of Paul's recent reflection was about their final time together. As George's health declined due to cancer, the two reconnected not as Beatles, not as icons, but as two lifelong friends who had shared a truly once-in-a-lifetime journey. "I sat by his bedside. We talked, we laughed," Paul shared, his voice breaking. He was still George, sharp, funny, peaceful. There was no bitterness, no anger, just love. Paul said that he often thinks about George when he plays music, especially when he hears a certain guitar tone or sees a beautiful garden. "He's everywhere. In the songs, in the silence, in the sunsets." What touched fans the most is that Paul acknowledged not just the good, but the complicated. He spoke about the times he and George argued, the times they drifted apart, and the pain of not always understanding each other in the moment. "You don't always get it right," he admitted. "But in the end, the love we had, it was real. And that's what I carry with me." Paul also shared how George influenced him spiritually. Harrison was known for embracing Eastern philosophy and meditation ideas that Paul once viewed with skepticism. But now Paul says he's come to appreciate the depth of George's beliefs. "He was ahead of his time," Paul said, "always searching, always seeking peace. And now, I find myself doing the same." To fans around the world, George Harrison was the quiet Beatle, but to Paul McCartney, he was so much more: a friend, a brother, a musical genius, and a soul unlike any other. "I miss him every day," Paul said softly, "but I feel him with me, always." In a world that often glamorizes fame and ignores the emotional truths behind it, Paul's words offered something rare: a heartfelt tribute, decades in the making, to a man who helped build a musical legacy that will live forever.